Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Donald Tusk's government is relentless in creating an alternative reality. Civic coalition politicians, based on information provided by Gazeta Wyborcza, are trying to make the public believe that Russian hackers supported law and justice in last year's election campaign. This is reminiscent of events in Romania, where the right-wing candidate who won the election was made out to be a man with ties to Russia, and his presidential election was annulled. Is the same scenario being written in Poland? Paralysis of the rule of law. This best describes the current situation in Romania. Because the election was won by a candidate outside the main establishment, he was portrayed as a man of the Russian secret services, which allowed the current president to annul the election. We have an ongoing coup d'etat. The current president has destroyed our constitution. He destroyed free elections and democracy and annulled the second round of elections. And now they want to keep him as president until new elections. They will be organized from scratch. This is a dangerous precedent that can be used in the future in other countries to invalidate more elections. This plays in line with the strategy of Civic Platform, which for years has been trying to portray Law and Justice as a pro-Russian grouping, against all logic. Now Gazeta Wyborcza has described the activities of Russian hackers who allegedly interfered in the Polish elections. Ahead of the 2023 parliamentary elections, hackers, likely acting on behalf of Russian intelligence, sent out 187,000 text messages with election agitation. They wanted to broadcast another 600,000. They also took control of screens in 20 shopping malls. The hackers sent out clumsy text messages urging people to vote for law and justice. The topic was picked up in no time by such stalwarts of Polish politics as Roman Giertych and Krzysztof Brejza. For them, this is the ultimate proof that Law and Justice is a Russian agency. First of all, one has to be powerfully limited intellectually to consider this hacking activity as something that was meant to support law and justice. This was a campaign that was even meant to ridicule Jarosław Kaczyński's grouping. This is one of the symptoms of building a politics of lies. Over the past few years, people close to Donald Tusk have tried, with a grace worthy of an elephant, to make the public believe that law and justice is acting in the interests of Russia. One of the leading proponents of this thesis is General Piotr Pytel, who has been attacking Jarosław Kaczyński's party in the pages of the irreplaceable Gazeta Wyborcza. Russia is already here. Its greatest success in Poland is law and justice. Radosław Sikorski went even further. The politician, who today holds a post of foreign minister, publicly insinuated almost 2 years ago that the Law and Justice government was planning the partition of Ukraine together with Russia. And do you believe that the Law and Justice government thought for a moment about partition? I think it had a moment of hesitation in the first 10 days of war, when we all didn't know how it would go. Such words are obviously dangerous nonsense, because it was Poland and Law and Justice that without any hesitation stood up to help the struggling Ukraine. The acrimony of the politicians of the governing camp on this subject comes from the fact that it was they who, when they governed the previous time, brought us closer to Moscow. The face of the reset with Vladimir Putin's Russia was none other than Prime Minister Donald Tusk himself. We want to dialogue with Russia as it is. Lack of dialogue serves neither Poland nor Russia. It spoils the interests and reputation of both countries in the international arena. It was Donald Tusk's team that made us dependent on Russian gas. It was under pressure from Vladimir Putin that the Prime Minister sabotaged the construction of the US missile shield. And it was finally the previous Civic Platform government that put the investigation of the Smolensk tragedy in Russian hands. And now they are dressing themselves in anti-Putin feathers. If you analyse the Russian media, you could see a huge sympathy towards Tusk. There were even biographies written by specialists in manipulation, biographies written by Russians, showing that Tusk is a man who Putin is able to get along with. Prime Minister Tusk would do much to erase the traces of his pro-Russian policies. One of the first decisions of the new parliamentary majority was to dismiss members of the commission to investigate Russian influence. And when powerful people entered the public media, the Reset series was removed from the TV archives. However, the truth cannot be drowned out by noise. This was the greatest crime committed during martial law. The communists sent troops of the militia, the People's Polish Army, tanks and armoured vehicles against defenceless miners. They shot to kill. Today is the 43rd anniversary of the pacification of the Wujek mine, during which 9 miners were killed. The Wujek mine in Katowice, a memorial site and the site of a horrific communist crime. 43 years ago, armed men were sent against the protesting miners, thugs from the civic militia. the Polish People's Army and the security service.
Nie przyjechali tutaj w zamiarach.
They didn't come here with peaceful intentions. They didn't come here to talk to the miners. They came here to shoot. That's what they were prepared to do, especially the special platoon of the motorized reserves of the citizens' militia, which fired those shots from 12:30.
Od godziny 12:30 te strzały oddał.
More than 700 soldiers, 22 tanks, 44 combat vehicles took part in the subjugation of Wujek. The authorities were shooting and killing. There were well over 1,000 armed people there. These were militiamen, motorized reserves of the citizens' militia officers, officers of the citizens' militia volunteer reserve, soldiers of the Polish People's Army, all with live ammunition. There were dozens of armored vehicles, there were tanks, there were BTRs. The criminals, Wojciech Jaruzelski and Czesław Kiszczak, gave orders. The thugs loyal to them carried them out. Shots were fired, fatal ones. These were not shots in the air or warning shots, but shots at the most sensitive points. That's why there were chest wounds, there were head wounds. Most people were killed by these types of shots. But in addition to this, there were other manifestations of brutality. The idea was to intimidate, the idea was to subdue not only the mine, but to subdue the whole society. The miners came to work every day but refused to come to terms with the martial law imposed by the communists, the repression, the arrests that had already begun, and the unlawful arrest of mining union activists. A measure of this brutality of the communist authorities against the striking miners is the number of 9 dead miners of the Wujek mine, more than 20 injured requiring medical attention. The miners defended their workplace, defended their dignity, defended their colleagues. The miners paid the highest price. It was a crime. It was an execution targeting ordinary people who wanted freedom and peace. The president of the Institute of National Remembrance and Citizens candidate for president, Dr. Karol Nawrocki, paid tribute to them today. I'm here, of course, to pay tribute to the victims, the miners, to condemn the perpetrators, the communists, but also to warn Poles, dear ones, against the fact that glancing towards communist dictators such as Wojciech Jaruzelski and Czesław Kiszczak was destroying our consciousness in the 1990s and the 2000s. It's high time for this to end. This crime will never be forgotten, and those who paid for freedom with their own blood will not be forgotten.
Cześć i chwała bohaterom.
Honor and glory to the heroes, eternal memory to the fallen miners of the Wujek mine and all victims of martial law. Honor their memory. The strongest cyclone in more than 90 years, Cyclone Chido, has hit the French overseas territory in the Indian Ocean. The island of 300,000 inhabitants, Mayotte in the Indian Ocean, has been devastated. The death toll may be as high as several thousand.
Winds of more than 200 kilometers per hour destroyed residential buildings, government buildings, and hospitals. Mayotte's densely populated slums, consisting of metal huts and other primitive structures, were literally wiped out. The wind was terrible. Everyone was screaming as they saw the end coming. A complete disaster. People can do very little. They are sitting, not moving, waiting for help, for food, electricity, water, because there is nothing. Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau has arrived on the island. Don't panic, don't rush, stay calm. Use what you have learned. You are professionals. We are doing what we can to help as many of the affected as possible. French authorities have diverted military ships and aircraft to the islands, 8,000 kilometers from Paris. Rescue teams and medical personnel from France and the nearby French territory of Reunion have been sent to the island off the east coast of Africa, along with tons of supplies. We have established a humanitarian air bridge between mainland France and Reunion Island, and between Reunion Island and Mayotte. This is how equipment and supplies are reaching us. The armed forces are taking an active role in managing the aftermath of the tragedy. This was probably the cyclone of the century, with the kind of power not seen here since 1934. Mayotte authorities fear that hundreds and possibly thousands of people have died as a result of Cyclone Chido. More than 800 additional rescuers are expected to arrive on the island in the coming days to search the ruins. This is the biggest disaster to hit the island since the 1930s.
A 40-meter statue of Jesus from Bolivia in a festive setting, more than 1,200 Santa Clauses on bicycles in London, the largest indoor ice skating rink in Paris, the Christmas atmosphere in a Croatian amphitheatre dating from Roman times, and finally the illuminations in Sydney. Welcome to a 5-minute journey around the world that is already preparing for Christmas.
The Cristo de la Concordia in Cochabamba is the second largest statue of Jesus Christ in the world. The statue is 4.5 meters shorter than the Christ the Protector of Rio Grande do Sul and 3 meters taller than the Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. It's really amazing how in the dark sky it begins to revive, as if it has risen from the dead. You feel as if he's alive. It's miraculous. The children were crying from the sensation. People were amazed. This is one of the largest statues of Christ in the world. We are proud to have it in our beloved Bolivia. Thanks to the illumination, it looks very beautiful. To reach the statue, one has to climb a hill, completing 2,000 steps. Every Sunday, tourists can also climb on the statue's shoulders to admire the picturesque Bolivian landscape. Some 1,200 Santas on bicycles rode through the streets of central London as part of the Children's Charities fundraiser. Thousands of spectators watched the army of Santas ride toward Buckingham Palace. Dressed in red outfits, the Santas squeezed through the crowded streets between London's black cabs and double-decker buses, standing out from the crowd of customers during the hectic pre-Christmas hustle and bustle. Meanwhile, in Paris, a giant indoor ice rink has opened for skaters to enjoy during the holiday season. Organizers say it is the world's largest indoor ice rink at 3,000 square meters. I'm happy to be here. There's a great atmosphere. Skaters will be welcome at the Paris Grand Palais, which hosted fencing competitions during the Olympics, until the 8th of January 2025, when the ice rink will be disassembled. In contrast, the Eternal City is preparing for the Jubilee year, which will begin on Christmas Eve. This year's Roman decorations make reference to sustainability. The 49 motifs of water drops symbolize the importance of this vital resource for humanity, and the luminous spheres represent global unity and solidarity, a nod to the Jubilee themes of hope and community. On a different note, the Adriatic city of Pula in northern Croatia has lit up an ancient Roman amphitheater with festive Christmas cheer, transforming the historic site into a vibrant ice rink. This is a unique opportunity to combine the Advent atmosphere with our most famous building in the city. This is the first time Advent has been held in our arena, and it's certainly a good idea. These lights look spectacular. The arena is very nicely decorated. As for us, super, perfect, great. Advent is wonderful. Among the illuminated decorations of Roman chariots and antique arches, some visitors were able to test their skating skills, while others were happy to enjoy the display of lights among the monuments filling the amphitheater. And finally, Christmas light shows and decorations in Sydney, Australia. Sydney's largest Catholic cathedral, St. Mary's Cathedral, was illuminated with colorful projections depicting scenes from Charles Dickens' short story, A Christmas Eve Story. The tallest Christmas tree in New South Wales features more than 110,000 lights, 330 large ornaments, and 15,000 native Australian flowers. And right next door, the annual Martin Place Christmas Market, which draws crowds of shoppers who enjoy festive treats all night in a fairy tale atmosphere of twinkling lights.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. From me, have a good night and a better tomorrow.